The Belgium UFO Wave. On the 29th of November 1989, the skies over Belgium became the center of one of the longest and most dramatic UFO events in European history. That evening, dozens of people across the Belgian countryside reported seeing a large black triangular craft in the sky. The object had bright lights at each of its three corners and a pulsing red light in the center. It moved slowly and silently over towns, highways, and open fields. Within days, hundreds more reports poured in from people all across the country. Police officers, soldiers, and ordinary citizens all described the same type of craft. The sightings continued night after night, week after week, for several months. By the time it was over, more than 13,000 people had reported seeing the triangular objects. The Belgian government took the reports seriously from the very beginning. Unlike many other countries, Belgium did not try to dismiss or cover up the sightings. The Belgian Air Force worked openly with civilian UFO researchers to investigate. On the 30th of March 1990, the Air Force made a bold decision. They scrambled two F-16 fighter jets to intercept the unknown craft. The jets' onboard radar systems locked onto the objects multiple times. But every time the pilots tried to close in, the craft performed impossible maneuvers. The triangular objects accelerated from a complete standstill to over 1,000 miles per hour in just seconds. They dropped from high altitudes to near ground level almost instantly. The F-16S had no chance of keeping up with the objects. The pilots reported that no known aircraft could perform such extreme changes in speed and altitude. The Belgian Air Force released their radar data and pilot reports to the public. Their commanding general held a press conference and admitted they could not explain what the objects were. He said the craft displayed technology that was far beyond anything in any country's military. Skeptics suggested the sightings might have been helicopters or experimental aircraft, but the radar data and the sheer number of witnesses made those explanations difficult to accept. The Belgium UFO Wave remains one of the most thoroughly investigated and well-documented UFO events in history. An entire nation watched mysterious triangles cross their skies, and even their own Air Force could not catch them. The Phoenix Lights. On March 13, 1997, one of the largest mass UFO sightings in history took place over Phoenix, Arizona. It started in the early evening when people in the northern part of the state noticed a formation of lights moving across the sky. The lights were arranged in a massive V shape, stretching wider than anything anyone had ever seen in the air. The formation moved slowly and silently from the northwest, heading straight toward the city of Phoenix. As it passed over towns and neighborhoods, thousands of people stepped outside to watch. The object was so enormous that it blocked out the stars as it glided overhead. Witnesses said it was like a giant, dark shape moving across the sky, with bright lights along its edges. Some people estimated the craft was over a mile wide. It made absolutely no sound, which made the experience even more unsettling. Phone lines at police stations and local news stations were flooded with calls from frightened residents. People from all walks of life reported the same thing. A huge V-shaped craft moving slowly across the city. Pilots, police officers, doctors, and families all described the exact same object. The formation of lights continued south, passing over the entire length of Phoenix before eventually disappearing. Thousands of people had watched it with their own eyes over the course of nearly 2 hours. The next day, the story was everywhere. News stations played footage captured by residents on their home video cameras. The public demanded answers from government officials. Arizona Governor Fife Symington held a press conference to address the growing panic. But instead of giving answers, he brought out an aide dressed in a rubber alien costume as a joke. The crowd laughed, but many witnesses felt insulted and dismissed. They knew what they had seen, and it was not a joke. The military later claimed the lights were flares dropped during a training exercise at a nearby base. But witnesses argued that flares fall downward and burn out, while these lights move together in perfect formation. Years later, Governor Symington made a shocking confession. He admitted that he had also seen the object that night and had been deeply shaken by it. He called it otherworldly and unlike anything he had ever witnessed. The Phoenix Lights remain one of the most witnessed and best documented UFO events in history. The Westall school sighting, Australia. On the 6th of April 1966, students at Westall High School in Melbourne Australia experienced something they would never forget. It was a normal morning, and students were outside during their break time on the school grounds. Then, someone pointed at the sky and shouted. A silver, disc-shaped object was descending slowly toward a large open field next to the school. Within moments, over 200 students and teachers were watching the object come down. The disc was smooth and metallic, and it moved silently through the air. It dropped below the tree line and appeared to land in a grassy paddock just beyond the school fence. Several students ran toward the field to get a closer look. One girl reportedly got so close to the object that she collapsed and had to be carried away by her classmates. The disc sat on the ground for a short time before lifting off again. It rose into the air quickly and was joined by what some witnesses described as two smaller craft. The objects then flew away at incredible speed, disappearing from view within seconds. The students and teachers rushed back to the school, buzzing with excitement and fear. But the excitement quickly turned to confusion and frustration. Within a short time, military personnel and government officials arrived at the school. They went to the landing site in the field and appeared to examine the area. Some witnesses said they saw the authorities remove something from the paddock. Then the officials came to the school and spoke to students and teachers. They told everyone to stop talking about what they had seen. Teachers were warned that their careers could be affected if they spoke publicly. Students were told they had imagined it or that it was just a weather balloon. But over 200 people had seen the same thing, and they knew it was not a balloon. The experience of being silenced left deep scars on many of the witnesses. Some students carried the trauma of that day for decades, afraid to speak out. It was not until years later that researchers tracked down the witnesses and recorded their stories. Their accounts all matched, even after more than 40 years had passed. The Westall school sighting is one of Australia's most famous and heartbreaking UFO cases. The Mexico City UFO sighting. On July 11, 1991, millions of people across Mexico City looked up at the sky to witness a total solar eclipse. It was one of the most anticipated astronomical events of the year, and the entire city was watching. People stood on rooftops, in parks, and on street corners with special glasses and cameras pointed at the sun. As the moon slowly covered the sun and the sky turned dark, something unexpected appeared. A bright metallic object was hovering in the sky near the darkened sun. At first, some people thought it was a star or planet that had become visible during the eclipse, but the object was too bright, too close, and too steady to be any known celestial body. It appeared to be a solid craft, gleaming with a silvery light against the darkened sky. Across the massive city, hundreds of people independently noticed the object and began filming it. Home video cameras captured the UFO from dozens of different angles and locations across Mexico City. People in completely different neighborhoods miles apart all recorded the same mysterious object. When the eclipse ended and the sun came back, the object was still there. It lingered in the sky for several more minutes before slowly fading from view. That evening, Mexican television stations began airing the footage. One of the country's most popular TV journalists, Jaime Maussan, collected videos from viewers across the city. He received hundreds of tapes, all showing the same object from different perspectives. The footage was remarkable because it could be cross-referenced between multiple independent witnesses. Scientists examined the videos and could not identify the object as any known aircraft or weather phenomenon. Some suggested it might have been a bright planet like Venus, made visible by the darkened eclipse sky, but many witnesses and researchers rejected that explanation, saying the object was far too large and bright. The Mexico City sighting triggered a wave of UFO reports across the entire country in the months that followed.